that matter, any philosophy that questioned his rightful place in the scheme of things. He bristled with an egotist's combative certainty. Humility never had a chance to take root. This dismal afternoon, Professor Munter's always feisty, self-important attitude, a demeanor that famously filled timid Harvard undergrads struggling through German 101 with fear and anxiety, was further sharpened by the fact that he was drenched. The best Munter could do, though, was to slap his damp, center-parted brown hair into place, give his shabby Van Dyke a restorative tug or two, wipe his wire-framed glasses dry, and try to fix his customary confident, bemused expression on his sallow face. He might be soaked to the bone, but he'd still make it clear that he was a man of whom anyone, even the Harvard president himself, would be wise to be mindful. The long trek up the 3 winding flights to the university's new psychology laboratory was difficult. His spindly legs, the muscles weakened by his degenerative illness, didn't do well on stairs. But Munter was determined. At an off-campus German society gathering, he'd recently made the acquaintance of the lab's director, the celebrated Professor Hugo Münsterberg, and the two men quickly found they had much in common. It didn't seem to matter that Munter, 35 years old and as thin and boyish as an undergraduate, could easily have passed for the portly 43-year-old bald-headed professor's son. Nor was their bond simply that they both had been born in Germany, still savaged their English with a distinct guttural rumble, although the younger man's accent was significantly fainter. After all, he'd been living in America for nearly half his life, and that both proudly held a cherished, even on occasion reverential allegiance to the fatherland. Rather, their budding friendship was built on a deeply held common interest in the criminal mind. Professor Münsterberg had come to Harvard at the urging of William James, the philosopher, to set up the first scientific laboratory in the nation to explore the psychology of crime. And while Munter's bachelor's degree from the University of Chicago was in German, as a graduate student at Kansas State University, he had investigated the motives, or more often rationales, he'd correct with a sly precision, that drove individuals to commit crimes. His research had resulted in a paper entitled Insanity and Literature. Now at Harvard, although he was pursuing his doctorate in German literature, Munter retained his fascination with the mental mechanisms that create criminals. When Munter explained all this to Münsterberg, the professor immediately invited the younger man to visit his lab and to borrow any books he wanted from his personal library. Today, undeterred by the weather or the climb, a curious and enthusiastic Munter had come to take advantage of the professor's generosity. What a world Munter entered! The top floor of Emerson Hall was a warren of rooms, through which wound a snaking trail of electrical wires connected to ingenious machines that, Münsterberg boasted, could do nothing less than reveal the secrets of the human mind. As christened by the psychologist, the devices included an automatograph to measure arm and finger muscle movements under stress, a pneumograph to measure variations in breathing caused by emotional suggestions, and a sphygmograph to record the halts, jumps, and rapid beatings of a guilty heart. These machines, Münsterberg promised, reduced a knowledge of the truth to an exact science. In fact, in a widely read interview published in the New York Times, a resolute Münsterberg had proclaimed that to deny that the experimental psychologist has the possibilities of determining the truth-telling powers is as absurd as to deny that the chemical expert can find out whether there is arsenic in the stomach. Months later, when questioned about Munter's tour of the laboratory on that rainy day, the professor would also be reminded of his bold comment to the newspaper, and his choice of metaphor would come back to haunt him with a chilling prescience. But that afternoon, the renowned criminologist had no suspicions. In fact, he invited his young friend to sit in on a class that was about to begin. Munter was standing in the back of the lecture hall listening to the professor with interest when the outburst occurred. "I want to throw some light on the matter," a student interrupted, rising to his feet as he spoke. All at once, another student jumped up to challenge him. "I cannot stand that," he shouted. "You have insulted